Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is episode 147, Emma and the Butterflies. And I hope you enjoy it. Emma, her mother called. Don't be out too long. Emma called, okay, over her shoulder and ran out to the pasture. The few cows were all in the stable. Emma ran to the far end of the pasture and through the fence. Just past it was a deep bed of grass, just in the shade and free from the cows and their manure. She flopped down and looked up at the patterns of branches and needles, looking black with the bright blue sky as their background. The slight movement of the trees and the breeze calmed her and brought a smile to her face. The sun would sometimes peek through all the branches and needles and make her squint, and so she held up her arm straight with her hand out at a right angle to shade her eyes. A butterfly, white and pale yellow, landed on her finger. A white light popped in her eyes. She tried not to move. She didn't want to scare the butterfly. She couldn't see it, and the bright light made her squeeze her eyes closed tight, but she could feel it tickling the back of her fingers with its legs and brush the side of her forefinger with one of its wings. She could also feel something else. Something started flashing through her mind, ideas, changes, concepts. She didn't have the right word for it. But she understood the tiny creature on her hand. She knew how it worked, what made it a butterfly. She knew it. She relaxed and probably fell asleep for a time. When she awoke, the sun had moved. Her face was still mostly in shade, but her legs were warm out in the sun. The butterfly had gone, and at some point she had lowered her arm until it had covered her eyes. She got up and ran back home, blinking in the sunshine. When she got home, her mother said, "I'd like you to sweep the front porch. Right away, please," she added, noting that Emma was making a move toward the stairs. "Okay," Emma said, and headed toward the mudroom. She grabbed the plastic-bristled indoor-outdoor broom and went back to the front door. "Doing it now." "Thanks," her mom called. Emma started sweeping. It was a simple enough chore, though the porch was very large, and it didn't take too long if she worked diligently. She was allowed to sweep the dust and bits of leaves and needles off the side because it dropped onto a blank stretch of dirt. When she did so, she saw another butterfly of the same type land on the railing near her hand. "Hello, friend," she said. She put her finger out, and it fluttered once and landed on it, flapping its wings a few times before resting. She closed her eyes. She could feel it, that flood of understanding returned. When she opened her eyes, there were two butterflies on her finger. She looked at them a while. She hadn't felt the second one join. She waited until they decided to fly off, then went inside. "Done, Mom," she called. She put the broom away, then went up to her room and closed the door. The sunlight was streaming onto her bed. She lay down and closed her eyes, enjoying the warmth on her face. She could almost feel the butterfly on her finger again. She opened her eyes, and sure enough, a little white and pale yellow butterfly was there on the knuckle of her forefinger. She closed her eyes again and opened them. Now there were two, moving calmly. She did it again, and now there were more butterflies in her hand. Again, and the back of her hand was covered. She knew them. She understood them. Over and over, she closed and opened her eyes and smiled at the increasing masses of butterflies on her hand and on her arm and on her bedspread. A couple of hours later, her mom needed her to come down for dinner. "Emma!" she yelled up the stairs. "Emma! Emma, why aren't you answering me?" she yelled as she came up the stairs. She marched down the hall to Emma's bedroom. With a single knock, she tried to push open the door, but it hardly moved. She pushed hard, and it opened a few inches. She saw that the whole door was blocked with paper. No, with something white, but moving. Butterflies. "Emma!" she yelled, and she put her shoulder to the door. The butterflies started separating in bunches and swarmed out in the hall, forcing her eyes closed and almost choking her. She pushed the door harder, squashing a few butterflies underfoot, but a tiny fraction, as the room was quite full of them. "Emma!" she yelled. As the butterflies streamed out into the hallway more and more, she was able to push the door open further and further, but there was just a mass of more butterflies. Her mother called, and an ambulance and the police came. They cleared out the butterflies as quickly as they could, even breaking open her bedroom window to make it go more quickly. The butterflies swarmed out and left in a curling wave. Though they found the dress Emma had been wearing on her bed, Emma was nowhere to be seen. A search was conducted, but she could not be found all that day. But that night, a small knock came on their back door. Mom opened the door, and there was Emma, naked but smiling, with a butterfly on the back of her hand. She seemed to have a few bruises, but was otherwise quite well. "Come in," her mom said, pulling her into a hug. "What happened to you?" Emma just shrugged and kept smiling. She could not and would not say. And that's the story for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2020, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.